Welcome to the MBVS Show. I'm your host, Mark Hayford, coming at you like hot maple syrup on buttered biscuits, baby. That's right. Stomping through the summer of 2022 for you in the name of mental wellness. And I didn't come alone. No, Junebug. I brought friends with me, and these are some of the biggest names in the game today. Let's kick it off from the Big Apple. Five-time author, 30 years in the game, longer than I've been alive at trauma and bereavement. He's a specialist of specialists, my friend, your doctor, Norman Freed. I didn't mean like your doctor. I mean like our doctor.
I liked it. I liked it a lot.
It was good. It flowed. Okay. Hey, you can't have an MBVS show, mind, body, voice, and spirit, if you don't have a neuroscientist, a psychology professor. But we got one. That's right. Dr. Haley Nelson. So Dr.
Hey,
Haley.
everybody. Great to be here.
Hey, check it out. Check it out. When you're a children's author, when you're a producer, when you're a podcaster, when you are a beast at being a voice over artist, you're needed on this show. It is my friend from the land of cool breeze and palm trees. It's Barbara Heller. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, listen, dressed like a lumberjack once again. Back our special guest from Oregon. He's a mindset coach. He's a mentor. He's a podcaster. He is an athlete. He's a freaking rock star. Jeremy Burright. Woo! Boom.
Wouldn't be the Northwest without it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to. What's up, squad? It's good to see everybody. And I'll tell you what, we've really been ripping through so many different types of questions throughout the year. I just want to preface this, everyone, letting you know that this is looking like it's going to be the relationship edition of the MBVS show. So get ready for a little emotional relationship therapy. And for all of you watching, I want to thank you for spending some time with us. If you have questions that you would like addressed, if you have something you're dealing with, reach out to us. We'd love to get whatever you have going on right here on the show. So without further ado, let's get into what we got to get into here. First question is, my boyfriend and I have been together for 5 years. Last month, he wanted to open our relationship. He says he's interested in a non-monogamous relationship from now on. I tried to accept this. I was kind of on board, but I realize now that I just can't do this. I don't want to lose him, but what can I do? Ooh, who's stepping into that one first?
All right, I'm going to go because I have probably the least amount of experience with this. And yeah, I always tell my friends, don't listen to me when it comes to relationships because I'm not in a healthy marriage. However, because my parents had such a terrible marriage, and it's very public, it's in my book, it's in a lot of stuff that I write, and I totally forgive them for it. It was all meant to be. I have interviewed hundreds and hundreds of really great marriage partners and sat in their homes and that's one of the reasons I started keeping Shabbat and why I moved to Israel for 2 years, because I wanted to be in homes where people actually got along. And I was like studying, how do you do that? Oh, that's how you get along. And that's how you give to people without physical, like you share and words and kindness and acts of kindness. And I have to say that I'm going to answer it with something my rabbi once said, who's a very good person to go to for marriage talk, Rabbi David Aaron. And he was once with a couple and they said, we've been together for 20 years. We don't need a marriage certificate. We don't need a ketubah. We don't need a marriage license or a ceremony. He said, that's so interesting. What are you afraid of? They said, we're not afraid of anything. They wound up spending a Shabbat with him. They went home and the wife said to the husband the following week, why don't we just get married? Like, I know we don't need the piece of paper. That week he packed his bags and left. And I always tell that story because when he shares it, he says, there's something about commitment. Love is a verb. And when we actually put our mouth at where our mind is, something happens in the relationship that makes it a lot stronger. And I find it really fascinating today how we're following people. Jeremy said that earlier to me. We follow people, meaning we admire them, we worship them, we idolize them, and they're in these relationships that are open. And I think, what does that do to our future generations? Where will we be in 20 years? If right now the thing is open, well, then why even have a marriage at all? And to me, I feel like there's something so sacred about committing and saying, this is my person. There is no one else. It can only strengthen the relationship. So if you're not on board with that, get the heck out. And why would you be in a relationship, by the way, for 5 years when you haven't made that commitment, what are you talking about when you're dating and trying to check out the person? That is my question to you.
Norm, you're muted.
You're muted, Dr. Norman.
Sorry about that. Barb, I appreciate that. And I want us all to remember that we have many different kinds of viewers with different ages and different cultures. So while many of us believe in the commitment of a marriage of fidelity, there are many that actually do think an open relationship is okay. And in light of the question that we're being asked, it sounds to me that one member of the couple is interested in an opening of the relationship and a polyamorous connection, but that one member is not. So regardless of whether the definition of commitment is our definition or not, it's very important that we honor the request of the person who's asking. The person saying that I'm not comfortable in a relationship that's going to be open. If two people from the same couple are okay with an open relationship, with a non-monogamous, which by the way has hierarchical definitions, and there are many ways people can be non-monogamous, that would be one way of taking a look at their connection. But this is a situation where one member says, I want A, and one member says, I want B. And the real question is, how do we help people resolve issues where they don't see eye to eye? If they both can agree to a commitment that involves fidelity, then they have those issues to work with. If, as this person said, I gave it a try, I thought I was okay with it, but in the end I'm not, kudos to you for being able to give it a try. But kudos to you for being able to use your voice and say, it just doesn't work. It's so important that when we find a life partner, that we recognize that we can meet their needs, but that they can meet ours. And if we are not meeting one another's needs and we miss each other, it might be important to find who you are in relation to other people and not this one.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, Norman, about different definitions for what a commitment and a committed relationship looks like. Now, monogamy, right? If you're looking at just the sexuality of it, what they're doing if they're inviting other people into their bedroom does not necessarily, or you're going into somebody else's, or maybe it's not even the bedroom, maybe it's the kitchen table, whatever, right? But either way, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not in a loving, committed relationship for all other aspects, because the act of sex is one piece of a relationship, right? A very large piece, but a piece, right? Just one piece. Now, I don't want my husband to listen to this and think that I'm giving him permission to go, because we have an agreement that it's a monogamous relationship. That's where we both are comfortable, and that's what we both want. Now, again, as Dr. Norman said, kudos to this person for giving it a try to say, hey, this is what my partner says that they need or that they want, and I'm willing to try and see if it works. And also, great that you recognize that that's not for you. So now what you need to do is, while it's wonderful that you're asking us this, you need to now have this conversation with your partner and say, okay, I gave it a try. I did this for you. I love you. I want to be with you. I understand that this is just a portion of our relationship, and I don't want this one thing to make us cut ties with everything else that we've created over the past 5 years. However, it's big enough to make me feel uncomfortable. And I know for me, if my husband weren't faithful with me in a sexual way, if he was with other people, everything else that we did throughout the day, I would be thinking about that, right? And that's on me. That's something that I wouldn't be able to handle. So she needs to be able to communicate that with her partner and say, hey, even though this is just one part of our relationship, to me, it's more, because it's going to carry over and spill over into all of these other facets. And I just personally can't get over it. So can we create a happy balance, a happy medium? What other techniques or something else can we spice it up in some other ways so that we can both be happy and both be on the same page? So it's that open line of communication. It is essential for any kind of relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, to have that communication. It is essential.
Now hold on, Jeremy. We're gonna play a game. You're gonna be Taylor Swift, and I'm gonna be Kanye, and I'm gonna let you speak in a minute. But hold on, Barb, you are biting your lip. What? There was.
Oh no! I just had food stuck in there.
No, I
actually was really appreciative of everything they said.
No, I felt like there was a part where
no, not at all.
No, I saw you, nodding and smiling and everything, but I feel like there was one part in the very beginning when
when she said the big piece?
something. So there was something there that
there was a little there's a little sexual innuendo. I think this is the very first time we've ever debated a point, but
it's interesting.
It is interesting, and with total respect and admiration for all my colleagues here, I'm always honored to be on this show. So I have so much respect for you. I just think my personal preference and passion is to try to get people away from this moral relativity that's happening in our society today, which I think causes a lot of destruction and mental unrest and unwellness. And it is really scary to me. Like, and you may disagree with this, but there are times when I'm having conversations with people who are also saying in the same breath, and again, this is a very extreme case, like not only is polygamy okay, but like pedophilia, 14 and up, who cares? And so we could get into that conversation too, but I live in the state of Florida. There's a lot of really interesting cases that are happening here. My dad's an expert witness, also a psychologist. And so I hear about these horrific crimes. I think they're horrific. Some people are saying not so horrific. So that's what I'm saying. Like when I hear people say that's just on me. If I don't like the polyamory of my husband or my partner, that's on me. That's when I take issue, because it's like, no, it's both of you. And where were you again when you were dating and looking for the partner? Why didn't that come up? Now, of course, people change. And especially when you go through the midlife crisis stage and you don't have a spiritual connection, people are going to do interesting things. But, what's the goal? That's
why I love what we do here, because there's not just the black and white. There's lots of gray going on, right? So this is interesting. Mm-hmm. Jeremy, what do you got on all this?
I got a lot of green on this one. When you spend time with, let's say this, if you run a lie detector test, this is something I like to talk about, and you tell a lie, what does your heart do? It flutters, it skips, it does something that is not healthy, in my opinion. So if you're lying to yourself throughout the entire day of how you are or are not okay with something that's going on in your relationships, what is your heart doing all day? And I think the one thing that our heart needs to know is that we got its back. And one of the things that I decided a few years ago is that I'm not going to enter into half contracts with something that I do not agree with. And I am okay with what Norman said is like, of kudos to you for trying it, and kudos to you for caring and loving somebody else to a capacity where you were looking for understanding first. But in a situation where when you look at the whole grand scheme of things and you're like, this is a contract I cannot accept. I feel like sometimes in relationships, the other person is waiting for you to stand up for yourself and be like, no, and hold that ground. I love you this amount, and I'm not about to share you with somebody else. That's where I stand.
Wow. Okay. That's a great take.
No, I'm saying,
go ahead.
Hold on a second. No, because I meant like, as you're talking to the person, that's where you're saying, that's where I stand. And then you pause because it allows the other person to be an active participant in that message. And one of the strongest positions you can ever come from if you're having a difficult conversation with your partner, if you're having a difficult conversation with someone in your life, is to learn how to say something and pause and hold in your own strength in that moment, no matter how much you're shaking in your heart, no matter how much you're shaking in your legs. So this is important for more than just relationships, because the active person on the other side now wants to chime in, just like Mark did. It's natural for the human condition. And sometimes when somebody is closing you out in the relationship, if they're closing you out they're making a unilateral decision on what they would like to happen, they're not allowing you to have your peace, and they're not an active listener in that moment. And that's how you can help make them an active listener and say, I don't do half contracts. I just want people to stand up for themselves a little bit more.
No, that's great. I just thought you were done talking. That's why I jumped in.
See? You see?
That's
way to ruin the pause, Mark. I mean, really.
There's no pausing on the MBVS, baby. But I'll tell you what, there's so much perspective here. So I really hope that the person that sent this in is going to be able to, find some grace and help in one or some of the answers, and for other people that are going through similar situations. So, all right, we got to move on, because we could do a whole hour on that topic. It's, so interesting. So, okay. And by the way, the disclaimer will be in the comments below, because we're short on time here. So let me roll with, I am a newly widowed man. I lost my wife of 41 years. My son and his wife and their children mean the world to me, but they seem to be nicer to her parents, and they treat me like I'm second class. Holiday meals are offered to his in-laws, and I have a right to see my grandkids. Am I wrong in being hurt? Did say this is the relationship edition of MBVS. So who would like to step to the plate first with this? Nobody.
Right, I guess I'll go again. Sorry. My mom sometimes complains to me about this with my sister and her kids, and it's an ongoing conversation in our family. And I always say to my mom, are you making space? Are you taking a pause for the grandchildren and for your own kids? You know, my sister and her husband, who are just wonderful, and they're so kind to her. But, you know, I think as we get older, you know, God shouldn't test me like this, but we might feel a little more needy. There might not be a lot on our schedule. And so, you know, I love the commandment of, you know, honor thy mother and father, honor your elders, regardless of even if they're related to you. Like, we're so losing that in our society right now. And it comes up a lot, you know, especially when, you know, grandparents come over and this is what people are doing on their phones and they don't even like look up to say hello or greet them at the door. I feel like that's a really good reminder for all of us to do our part in honoring our elders, regardless of whether they're boring or they don't know how to use an iPhone. You know, just ask them a question. They're actually going to be there in real time with you and not looking at their phones. And they might actually give you this thing called advice that you might need with wisdom and years of experience. But having said that, is this person, I would challenge them to say, are you looking for them to not take care of you? Are you, I heard Jeremy say this earlier this week, and I loved this comment. Are you worthy of being followed, right? Because kids today are like, I follow this person, I idolize this person, I worship this person. Well, you know, what are you doing to reach out to them, to make them want to be with you? And so much of the time when we feel that someone is not making a space for us, it's because we don't feel worthy of that space. So how are you treating yourself when you walk through the door? Is your mindset, everyone loves me and I love them? Or is it, they're not going to do it again? Oh, see, they turned away, and that becomes the energy in the room. It's a silent thing, and it kind of takes over. So make the space for them to love you, make the space for them to show up, and chances are they will.
I'd like to, first, for this person, I can't imagine that profound loss of being married to somebody for 41 years and then recently have lost them. So first and foremost, my condolences for your loss. And I hope that you're healing and you're doing what you need to do to take the right steps to heal yourself, because I'm sure that that's what your partner would want as well, for you to continue to thrive. And in part of that thriving, right, is having that relationship with your kids and being able to ask for what you want. And so once again, the last question was maybe a more juicy question, right? Talking about what's considered, you know, infidelity and what isn't, and what's okay with that type of a relationship. In this, the dynamic is different because it's between a father and their child and what their relationship is. And all relationships, again, whether it's between me and my kids or me and my husband or me and my students or me and my friends or my mother, whoever it is, in order for them to work, you have to be on the same page and be able to feel comfortable enough to be able to ask for what you want, and in certain cases demand what you need. And in this particular case, especially if they're grieving, you know, maybe this is something that their children, that this individual's children are doing unintentionally. Maybe they think he wants space. Maybe they think that he doesn't want young kids running around and messing up the house, and who knows, right? But the only way to find out is to ask them, hey, I've noticed that you haven't really been around very much. I would love to see you. Can I invite you over for Sunday dinner or for Shabbat or whatever it is that they celebrate? Something together. And it doesn't have to be religious based. It can be, right? Whatever it is. Hey, let's have a movie night. I'll make popcorn, bring the grandkids, make a mess of my house, right? Whatever it is, just communicate what it is that you want so that you can get what you need.
So I love that, and I thank you for both of those beautiful answers. And I recognize that a new widower, or for that matter, anyone who's new to the land of grief, is going to really be in a very dark place, and as a result might misperceive overtures of attention as rejection. So what I would say, in line of, you know, Dr. Haley, you were speaking about the son and the daughter-in-law. Barb, you were talking about the sense of loneliness. I would ask the man himself who asked this question, how much of what you're experiencing is steeped in truth and reality, and how much of it is being somewhat filtered through loneliness and sadness. When we are grieving, particularly in the first year of a very important loss, we might not perceive certain things as they're meant. Is your son really rejecting you, or is your son going about his business in his own grief for having lost his mother? Is he becoming overattached to his mother-in-law as a function of missing his mother? Is he attaching to his wife and making her happy for fear that he might lose her if he doesn't, because he just lost his mother? There are many other unconscious variables that might be going on here. So when you find that you are feeling hurt, absolutely open the dialogue and make that discussion something that happens. But understand that if your needs are not being met, maybe your son's needs aren't being met either. And this first year of grief is a time when so much seems unreal and confusing. And I would ask you to tolerate the pain and the discomfort, not just of the loss, but of the struggles that your own son and daughter-in-law are going through as well.
Yeah. And the one thing I want to end with a caveat is everyone has a right to be heard about this. Of course not. Your feelings are your feelings and truth is your truth. The one thing I'll say is I get a little bit hesitant, and this is coming from a kid perspective too, of when someone says, I have the right for this. We can't use logic to get through emotions.
Wow.
And just because you are a parent doesn't mean you have the right to spend time with me. And I've had to use those boundaries in my own past where it's like, look, if I'm going to be the culmination of the 5 people I spend the closest time with, and I'm trying to be a big time professional athlete and have all these big time things in my life, and you live in anxiety and worry, you're crazy if you think that I'm going to spend a lot of time with you. AKA, I need you to be better. And that's what I was saying earlier in the week that Barbara was talking about is kids have influencers in their lives, people that they've looked up to for years. And we don't come to our parents and ask questions really anymore. We have YouTube. And so when I look at this is if you're going to try to get through to a kid, if you're going to try to get through to someone in your family, in relationships, come through it with vulnerability, not with rights. You do not have the right because he has the right to choose. And so I'm coming from a little place of a tougher love. And so hear me when I say this. Hear me twice when I say this, actually. No, everyone has the right for free will. And if you're going to get through, it's going to be through vulnerability of, hey, I'm struggling. I miss my wife. I'm alone. And I know that I may not be the person you want to spend time with right now because I'm not bringing the best energy at all times. And look into yourself, look into the mirror and speak that out and allow him to see that you are at least reflective on the parts that you're bringing that are negative. Because that's when you're telling him, look, I see that I'm doing these things and I'm trying to change. I'm trying to be better for you guys. I'm going to try to get involved and maybe volunteer or work with some friends and get some energy going on my own because I see that maybe I'm being a little needy right now. But just know that I'm going through something and I'm alone. That kind of vulnerability, that kind of honesty is how you open doors in relationships.
Amen.
Not through rights.
Amen, Jeremy. Brilliant.
Guys, wow. I mean, it is, I would love to continue to deep dive into this because, again, wisdom perspective, there's so much from so many different angles here. But unfortunately, we're up against the clock, and it looks like we have to land the plane. So what I'd love to go is quick 60-second roundtable from everyone here, just giving some words of encouragement to our viewers until we get to see them next time. Ladies first. Barb, do you want to jump in there?
Sure. I just want to end with a little different take on what Jeremy just said, because I think it's worth noting that, our elders are the ones that we chose. I believe that our soul chooses them. And so as much as I've also had to put up strong boundaries with my elders, and I don't spend every second with them by choice, but they're not a mistake. And as long as you can tolerate it and it's not like crazy physical, emotional, sexual abuse that you should really look into with a professional. I think that they just need sometimes a little bit of hand holding, a little bit of being there for them, a little bit of kindness. And we are missing that right now because of so many people, especially on my podcast, One Beautiful Soul, I don't talk to that person anymore. Oh, we got into a fight once, and I think you ended it so beautifully because you're saying the exact same thing, but I don't want someone to misunderstand like, well, I get to choose whether I'm with you or not. You were anxious once, so I'm not going to spend time with you. That would be the extreme of that. We have to make space for people to be able to be vulnerable. And you said it so beautifully. So I just want to end with that, but I think I said enough for it. So that's my 2 cents.
All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you for bringing that full circle. Dr. Haley, what do you got?
I'm going to keep mine short because I have a scratch in my throat and I don't want to have a coughing attack while we're doing this. So, and it's related to what I wanted to say, which is communication, right? We need to be able to express our thoughts and our feelings because they are validated because they are ours, right? And be able to express them and say them to ourselves, number one, but then also to the people who we love and to love us in return as well. So part of communication is also listening, right? We have 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. So listen to ourselves, listen to our feelings. What are we telling ourselves? What is our body telling us, as Jeremy was mentioning with the heart rate and everything? What is who in the universe and the people and ourselves, something's communicating to me. I need to listen to it. I need to process it and think about it and then be able to communicate it effectively to other people. And when I say effectively, that also means they have to also listen as well. So if they didn't hear you, if they didn't listen, have patience, have grace, and try again when they are in that right state.
Hashtag communication. Jeremy, what do you got?
The truth is undefeated. Our truth in our hearts, our truth that we feel deep inside is undefeated if you can learn how to tap into it and learn how to not judge it. It's the first thing I want every one of my clients to do is to learn how to speak their truth in a way that allows them to feel seen and heard. Because people feel, I don't feel seen, I don't feel heard. It's because you're not speaking your own truth. You don't even hear yourself, as Dr. Haley just said. And so the one caveat I want you to hear from me in the end is if you're about to say something that's difficult for the first time to a family member, it's, hey, look, this is hard for me to admit, but just preface your audience because then they are hearing like, hey, I'm about to say something that's a little bit different compared to how our relationship standard has been for the last X amount of years. So you're not just like, hey, boom, right in their face. It gives them it gives them the chance and it gives you the chance to be honest as often as you possibly can. And that's when I feel like the energy flows through us. It doesn't get stuck. Thanks for having me today, guys.
Thanks
Beautiful,
for being here,
Jeremy.
brother. What do you got, Dr. Norman?
Jeremy, you are the voice of vulnerability, and I think it's beautiful, and I'm so happy you're here. I think for me, the takeaway among all of us is that when we communicate, we speak from the I, not from the you. We don't say dogmatic, you haven't been kind. We say, I feel mistreated. I wish, I want. Because as Barb said, if we speak in that person, we can't be wrong. There are feelings. And I think it's important that when you speak from a place of vulnerability, you recognize the difference between stating your piece and stating your war. State your piece, and you will be heard and loved.
What do you say? What do you say
Wow.
after that? Guys, you all knocked it out of the park again. Thank you for taking the time and for showing up and showing big for people on the MBVS show. And listen, we'll just end with this. Hey, everybody's dealing with something that you have no idea about. So be kind. Be kind to people, right? Just stay encouraged and encourage others. That's it. So we are going to peace out of here because we're up against that clock, like I said. But we will see you next week on the MBVS show. So for Dr. Haley, for Barb, for our guest Jeremy, and of course for Dr. Norman, I want to say stay blessed. You're the best. See you guys next week. Peace.